And the recording is on. Hi all, thanks for joining the Keptn community meeting. Just a quick reminder, we did two changes in the schedule. So we will keep Keptn community meetings as is during this time slot, 4 p.m. UTC, but they will happen only every 2 weeks because we agreed that developer meetings would start at 9 a.m. UTC, effective next week. So basically, now we have Keptn community meetings in APAC, EMEA time zone on Wednesday, in EMEA United States time zone right now, and also developer meetings on Thursdays every other week. Later, we might merge meetings somehow, but for now, this is the arrangement. So let me share my screen. So, and yeah, thanks a lot to Jürgen and Patrick for joining. Patrick, would you like to introduce yourself? We can do it like asynchronously. So yeah, I'll share my screen. Do you see it? So yeah, what do we have in the agenda today? So first of all, yeah, reminder, we got through it. Then we have 0.13.0 release, actually fresh over the boat, over the ship. I'm not sure what terminology we use here. And yeah, I believe that, yeah, 3 hours ago. So what are key items here? That there is a lot of UX improvements for the breach, including management for secrets, uniform reallocation, etc., etc. Also, there is foundation work for OpenID support. So now you can use OpenID to connect the breach, CLI, and distributor. There is still no permission model behind that, but yeah, it's also on the scope of CAP 60. So looking forward to that to be landed. Any other updates for this release you would like to share? Maybe you, Christian?
Not from my side. I haven't been actively participating in this release.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So basically, that's all for the release. Try it out. It was available for preview. And yeah, thanks a lot to everyone who was involved. And highlight, this is not a break-in release, so you should be able to flawlessly update. Okay, then the next topic. Yeah, today we have Keptn Advisory Board meeting. So Keptn has a number of advisors, 7 if I recall correctly, and we finally be able to organize a meeting for this board. I'm currently preparing a slide deck to summarize what has happened since the last meeting in September. So if you participated in a Christmas update, it's basically more or less the same slide deck with some updates. So if you want to review it and share some feedback, please go ahead. So I will be presenting 3 topics today. So firstly, incubation status. The long didn't treat, we are still waiting for CNCF TOC, and we are still waiting for tax security to start the security review of Keptn, so that we also don't have ETA. It should have happened this month, but obviously it's not happening. So no idea. Then there will be roadmap update, including some new deliveries, Artifact Hub, Job Executor Service, event hooks, also tutorial changes, updates to the roadmap. And specifically, there we will go through the documentation roadmap, through community roadmap, and also through the feature roadmap. Because what was presented in September, everything is delivered. It's awesome. And we have a few topics on the list. So we have zero downtime upgrades, we have airbag, we have a part of the airbag. We also have authentication part, OpenID part, which probably deserves to be a separate item on the roadmap. Plus, we still need to update the roadmap, but we have GitOps work by Thomas, and these are basically key stories happening right now. And if you would like to share any additional topics we should add, for example, for integrations, etc., please let me know. I'm happy to update the slide deck. I have plenty of time reserved. So Christian, Jürgen, would you like to see something else presented there?
I mean, I don't know how much the ecosystem around Keptn is represented in that meeting, like Prometheus Service, Job Executor Service, Artifact Hub. These three would be my highlights from a personal perspective, but I also don't know if that's actually in scope or if this
Yeah,
is out
it
of
is in
scope.
scope. So actually, I start from them: Artifact Hub, Executor Service, Webhook Service. For Webhook Service, I will probably add examples. So recently we had a nice here. Yeah, I do artwork in Google Slides. Sorry for that. So I will probably add an example of that. It's just new integration with Zapier, and we have other integrations like that. And
Yeah,
and
that's
also
nice because it just adds a multiplier to the whole Keptn ecosystem using webhooks, using job executors. So I think it's really a highlight also to present it. And Artifact Hub is really just the conclusion of all of that to have it listed somewhere.
Agreed. Actually, yesterday we had a user group with Adam, and they said explicitly that probably he created the most of integrations right away than anybody else by Zapier and the EFTT. So yeah. But what is definitely missing here, support for Helm chart management for Prometheus service and other service. This is something we also need to highlight, I think.
Some of those are really just technical depths that we resolved. I don't think those are the real highlights. I think the fact that we are making sure that there is a lot of work now being put on all of these services with dedicated people as well. I think that's what we should highlight. Doesn't need to be the Helm chart management itself. This is just like a technical depth that we resolved.
Okay. Okay, so if you see anything else that could be added, just edit on the slides. Also, yeah, we'll spend some time for documentation roadmap.
I mean, I will present some of the changes of Prometheus service now in my next part anyway. So if you feel like something is really awesome, then feel free to take it in there.
Sure, we'll do. Okay, just to finish what we have. So yeah, Keptn community update, all so thanks to all users, etc. New community portal, Keptn at KubeCon, and thanks Jürgen. You're not getting. Oh,
yeah, I just saw it. So I didn't know that that there are the slides for today. So I just updated the team. But yeah,
I do everything in time, so slides didn't exist 30 minutes ago.
Okay.
Okay, then yeah, growing adoption, community marketing. I just put a few funny screenshots, but basically that's it. And also what we discussed at the community meetings, KubeCon Valencia. So it's we are still confirming it, but we want to have this event. So yeah, here's a placeholder slide, and probably we will be able to have a panel session there with advisory board or other higher key people. So basically, that is what I am going to present. If you want to see something else added, just comment. But yeah, basically that's it from me for today. As you may have noticed, we have also started a help contributing Slack channel to help newcomer contributors. But yeah, it's a rather minor update before it's fully documented. But hopefully it will add other contributors. And yeah, maybe other topics which worth highlighting is that we now officially host a Datadog integration service in Keptn Sandbox. Was promoted to the sandbox on Tuesday. So we are looking forward to the alpha release. Actually, maybe it's also something I would like to add to the roadmap because it's important. It's basically a third major SLI provider we also discussed Azure Data Explorer. Maybe it makes sense to the roadmap if Dmitry is interested. But yeah, these are also important topics.
Oleg, do you know have the like the statistics in terms of usage or adopters? Have they significantly changed from last time we presented to the advisory board?
So currently we are at around 90 to 100 active installations. The number actually jumped before Dynatrace performed because there were workshops, etc. But this is approximate number. What I actually see, we still have a serious surge in downloads and in traffic to Slack. So even if the number didn't change significantly, it looks like the community becomes more active, and yeah, hopefully it will have cumulative effect. So I'm not sure whether it's your perception too, Christian, but yeah.
Well, my perception towards Keptn installation is not existing, but what I perceive actively is that there is more traffic on Slack, there is more questions coming up, and also specifically to my topic, there is more things coming towards Prometheus now. So, which means to me that there is more people in the Keptn open source that use Prometheus as well. That shows two things. A, that the efforts that we've put into Prometheus or into Prometheus service before, which were primarily driven by Jürgen, so thanks for that, are now finally, well, shaping, and we can see the fruits of it. And two, we need to continue that effort. And I hope that's okay if I just use this as a segue now for my topic.
Yeah, please go ahead with your topic, and thanks for this highlight. I cordially believe that we should have Prometheus as a first-class citizen. And actually currently I see more changes in Prometheus documentation than in Dynatrace 1, which also sounds funny.
Yeah. What happens if I share my entire screen? I cannot just share one of my monitors, can I?
Well, we do not know what is on your screen, but otherwise it should be okay.
Yeah, but it shows me.
I think you can share only one tab or in the browser, but if you want to show the IDE, then it's probably the full screen.
Yeah, okay. I will. So you can see my browser now. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So let me quickly go over the changes we did to Prometheus service the last couple of weeks. First of all, big thanks to Paolo, one of our new contributors here, who started by making sure that we no longer need to delete or actually restart Prometheus itself when we update its configuration. He also started with some little refactoring, but just to give you a good feeling, what it means is we removed this function, delete pod, which we were calling probably here. Yeah. So what we did is we applied the configuration here to Prometheus Alert Manager and to Prometheus by editing the config map, and then we force restarted Prometheus by deleting the pods. This is not necessary anymore since a couple of Prometheus versions because there is a config map reloader built in. So this is really nice. And what this brings us is we no longer need to reconnect to Prometheus if we do a port forward. And obviously we don't lose monitoring data because if you restart Prometheus, it's gone like for a minute or two and you lose monitoring data for that time. So really great enhancement. And that's why I also want to share the code because it was a really simple enhancement. Second enhancement from Paolo was that we no longer generate alerts, like we configure alerts, unless a remediation YAML is present. So Keptn's remediation YAML, just to, can you see my IDE now?
No.
No, okay. Then I will quickly show it here. So Keptn's remediation YAML looks like this. It says, if a problem happens, do something like scale up or toggle a feature flag, or you can configure it basically to do a lot of things. And if that's not present, there's no point for Prometheus to configure alerts, because what would happen is you get alerts for staging, you get alerts for dev, and you really only want alerts for production if that's where your remediation YAML lives. Then there was some refactoring involved. I don't want to go into detail for that. Long story short, less code means less bugs. And actually, with that refactoring, we managed to fix a very old bug. So that's good. A feature request that we did is we now allow labels and deployments to be used as SLI placeholders. So I will actually show that on an example later, but we can now use $deployment in the SLI config. Before, we weren't able to do that. I don't have an example for the labels, but they work the same here. Last but not least, again, some refactoring and support for Keptn 0.12, which is just updating the distributor and adding some environment variables. This is most of this actually up to this point is already in a pre-release. This has just been merged today, but this will also make it into a pre-release. And if everything works out, we can make a full release with all those changes next week. Okay, now...
sorry, Christian, does it change anything? Because Oleg mentioned Keptn 0.13, and here it's 0.12.
I haven't tested it with 0.13 yet, so right now we're working on 0.12. Okay. We're a little bit lagging behind. Usually 0.13 should be compatible, but we haven't tested it yet, so...
Yeah, but that's a general problem for us. So we theoretically have compatibility matrix for services, but this compatibility matrix is always dated. So we need to change something. And yes, we discussed last week. So Roberts joined to help with the documentation and developer experience. So once we get past through all the onboarding stage, we plan to actually do massive work of how the site works. And we currently think about replacing the current documentation site by Antora engine with a lot of automation, including maybe building compatibility matrix and other funny things. But let's see.
Yep. So also thanks for filling the gap, because I just changed my monitor configuration so I can share my actual screen. There we go. So now I can, like, you see my terminal now? And you see my IDE now? Does this work? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So I want to show this by example. And first of all, I want to make a port forward to my Prometheus server, which is going to be available on localhost 8068. And I just want to show you that I don't have any alerts configured, and I don't have any targets other than the ones that it's coming with configured. And what I will do, I will call Keptn configure monitoring -- project sockshop and service cards. I forgot to add Prometheus here. And what this is doing in the background, it is Prometheus service trying to fetch the SLO configuration, the SLI configuration, and a potential remediation configuration, and creating targets and alerts in Prometheus. And all of this is happening without Prometheus restarting. So if you look at the pods of Prometheus, you can see they're running for 34 minutes. They're not being restarted. And if we refresh here, at some point, they should show up. The config map reloader runs, I think, once per minute. Let's see if there are alerts already. No. Let's wait for them to show up. In the meantime, I will show you the changes.
Another question in the meantime. Did you also had to upgrade the Prometheus version, right? Because it was a quite old version the time I last joined the meetings. It was like 2.12 or something.
I actually don't know which version we're using, because we are very pragmatic about that now, and we're just using the Prometheus Helm chart that's provided by the Prometheus community. And with that already comes a very nice version that just works out of the box.
Yeah.
So we're no longer installing it using Prometheus service. We're now really relying on the user to install it themselves, but it's really super simple.
Yeah.
So let's see. Yeah, there we go. Prometheus service has now configured some targets. Some of them are red. Don't worry about them. Focus on the ones that are not red. They are actively fetching metrics and scraping the metrics endpoint. But let's look at the alerts, and there is no alerts configured because I don't have a remediation YAML. So what I would need to do now is I would have to say Keptn, add resource, project sockshop, service cards, stage, production. Let me check if it's production or prod. It's production. And I would add the resource remediation YAML. So this will add my remediation YAML for cards in stage production. And if I now run configure monitoring again, it takes some time again, and then it will show up eventually in Prometheus. All right. While we wait for that, I want to quickly jump into the SLI configuration and the $deployment flag and motivate why we actually need it. So before, we had two SLI configs for Prometheus in our examples repository. One that we call SLI config Prometheus blue-green, and one that we call self-healing. And the main difference between those two is essentially here that we are focusing on service project stage. So for instance, cards dash sockshop dash production dash canary, or for the self-healing part, we're focusing on the primary pod because in this blue-green deployment focused scenario, what we want to do is we want to fetch metrics of the canary pod. This is the application under test. And in the self-healing scenario, we want to fetch metrics and produce alerts for the primary pod, which is the application that's, deployed out there for everyone to use. And with the changes that I did, we can now just write $deployment for those and completely get rid of the self-healing one here. And, probably even rename this one to just SLI config Prometheus, same as we have SLI config dynatrace.yaml. So we're now closer towards feature parity between those two as well. Okay, in the meantime, Prometheus is telling me it has been successfully configured. Let's take a look if there's an alert. Yes. So the alert has been created, and we should be able to see it has been created for the primary pod. And if you wonder where is the values coming from, like 900 here, this is coming from the SLO configuration that I have already pre-applied before. But also, as you see, it's only this alert for production here, and there is no alerts for staging or dev or any other thing that shouldn't be there. All right. With that, I would like to end my quick demo and just ask if you have any questions.
Looks really nice. Yeah. So for me, I really like the integration with Prometheus and how it works. Actually, one topic I keep in mind is Headless Primitives, so the model they recently introduced. So what's your take on that, Christian? Do we see it would be reasonable to integrate it inside Prometheus service?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
So recently there was a new project introduced in Prometheus, basically Headless Primitives, which just acts as forwarder for OpenTelemetry. So I wonder whether it would be feasible and reasonable to implement it in the service or maybe in another service.
I don't know the actual scope of this project, but I'm assuming as it is related to OpenTelemetry, it would make more sense to have a generic OpenTelemetry based service and then integrate that with the OpenTelemetry Prometheus headless project, because you should really focus on do one thing and do it well. And Prometheus service, as it is right now, well, right now after refactorings, it is okay-ish, but I wouldn't want to add more content to it. Let's put it like that.
Mm-hmm. Great. Yeah, having open telemetry SLI provider would be awesome because you could access metrics right away. Though without PromQL, etc., I guess SLO part is going to be, well, SLI part will need to be calculated right on the service side, which makes it a bit less trivial than the existing integrations.
I agree. But yeah, OpenTelemetry is probably a whole different or whole another topic that you need an expert for. And I am no expert at no means with Prometheus. So I'm really also just learning as I go.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
Not from me.
You're already muted, Christian.
Thanks. Okay, then I have one more thing to just quickly announce here. We are planning to deprecate the generic executor service, which is a Keptn sandbox project that hasn't really received a lot of updates in the last couple of months. And there is let's say, a natural successor of generic executor service, which is the job executor service, which is actively maintained and getting bug fixes, security updates, etc. So we're really just trying to grasp now what is the impact of deprecating generic executor service? Is anyone really using it out there, and how are they using it? We know of a couple of people already, but we cannot really estimate. Is it 5 people? Is it 100 people? So if you are using generic executor service, please, I will share a link, or as a link actually shared in the meeting notes. Go to that link, post on the GitHub repository, or post on Slack even. Get in touch with us. Let us know that you're using it and how you're using it. This will help us with our deprecation.
Yeah. I will also ask Julia to include it into the newsletter. And yeah, we could also try doing it in social media, but yeah, the odds of reaching out to actual users through these channels are not that high. This is probably a point when any product manager would ask, do we have any analytics? But yeah, we actually don't. Well, maybe it's something we will need to discuss eventually, because when the number of adoptions grow, making decisions about deprecating some bits of APIs, etc., would be really important. And without usage analytics, it's super difficult to make guesses. Well, we passed through that in Jenkins, especially when we were doing Java 11 upgrade, and we were dropping some features which were not feasible to migrate. So I think that eventually we'll have a discussion about this topic.
I agree. However, we shouldn't make it too complicated for sandbox projects in the end. Sandbox is really a sandbox, as it is stated there. And right now, we are just seeing there is a better project out there. Then let's just use the better project and ensure all people are informed about the change and are able to migrate.
Yeah, totally agree, especially since now we have clear migration paths. So if we were just removing the feature, it would be a separate topic. But
absolutely.
Is it planned to also, let's say, deprecate other services that are in the sandbox for quite some time and have not been maintained? And that last time I checked, we had a couple of projects that are they never made the jump to a higher Keptn version, but they are not maintained by the smaller Keptn team, but like really the community. So it might also be difficult to get a hold of them again. So is it planned to also deprecate those, or is the owner of the service responsible for calling it deprecation?
It's a little bit of both, to be honest. Right now, the use case is we have a different service that does it better. So it is a logical step for us to make sure that we kind of archive the old service. One example that comes into my mind that we can discuss about deprecating would be the locust service and the litmus service, because eventually, we're not there yet, but eventually the job executor service can take both of these use cases. And when that's the case, then we can discuss deprecating those. We're not quite there yet, so right now I think it's too early to say that. But I don't know, Oleg, what's your opinion on let's say the many outdated repositories in Sandbox?
Well, eventually we will need to take a look at that. My approach that Sandbox has clear quality expectations. So the repositories might be abandoned, they may be unstable, they might have no maintainer. And if you're a user of these repositories, there is a clear way contributing to the project or finding someone who would contribute on your behalf. So same as any other projects, WordPress, Jenkins, whatever, there is always this huge tail of integrations, this, let's say, difficult maintenance. So as long as they work in principle, as long as they do not impact other integrations, and as long as they do not impact evolution of the project, it's fine to just keep them lingering when the proper expectation is set. But what must not happen is that these projects create some issues for evolution of Keptn itself. Because, yeah.
I would be happy to basically set up again maybe a connection to when we're talking about locust or litmus to the maintainers of the projects, because I was heavily involved in both for locust and litmus. And locust, I will put it in the chat because we created a video on this integration, and this video is still featured on the locust website. So whenever we change something that is completely changing the approach, and that would mean if we remove the locust service and integrating it into the job executor, then we are changing completely the approach how we do it. Then we might want to reach out to Lars, who is one of the maintainers, again, to maybe do another video on the new approach how to integrate locust, so that we are not breaking what we said in this video, but maybe are just updating it.
Yeah, also for such tools, we always need to keep in mind that at some point there might be use case for the web UI, etc. And immediately after that, just using job executor service becomes impossible. So I wouldn't hurry with the decision to deprecate them, especially if there is some interest to get these services evolving. Mm-hmm. Okay, so do we have any other topics on the agenda for today? I guess Christian has to drop. Well,
I only added one last item.
Yeah. All right.
And I will be presenting Keptn, and especially the journey of Keptn in the CNCF next week on a Kubernetes meetup virtually. It will be in Graz, in Styria, and it will be more focused on the CNCF. We will do it in German most probably, because the meetup language is German, and it will be a joint presentation with Daniel. I cannot remember which company he's affiliated with, but it will be they were reaching out and wanted to know how it's actually working within the CNCF and how projects are going. So just as a heads up.
Have a great presentation, and yeah, so you have access to Keptn account, or just focus in social media outreach and community channel. So if you don't forget, we will try to get a final push for social media, and if you forget, please ping us.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Thank you too, and yeah, thanks everyone.
Thanks.
So
have a nice evening.
Bye. Have a nice evening. Bye. See you next time. Bye.